And I think Keith as well from SDE, we're going to kind of triangulate a version of group conversation moderation. We'll see between the three of us how successful we are. I think I have confidence that we'll do something relatively productive, but it's great to see everyone. And I'll just say I recognize a lot of the names and faces, and it is wonderful to see so many folks from different areas, different sectors getting together. I haven't done my homework as much as I probably should have on these slides, but I have had good conversations with Kelly and Grace very recently in terms of the direction they want to go with the revisions of the strategic plan, the new iteration of the strategic plan. We have the compact in front of us. I have my colleague and friend at UConn, Dean Elliott is here, of course, and again, anything I mess up, I know Dean Elliott will certainly be able to help me fix that because he's used to that from my years at UConn as well. So maybe we'll just jump in and I'll just offer some kind of broad thoughts from a higher ed perspective just to start the conversation. The thing that impresses me and I really appreciate about this work, and I've said this publicly and privately, the Governor's Workforce Council, which started a few years ago, and the Office of Workforce Strategy as well, I think has really helped us make leaps and bounds in terms of progress. We do things now we haven't done before. We talk to each other in ways and collaborate in ways we never did before. And if we take a step back and just kind of appreciate that progress, I think it should make folks feel pretty good. It's not perfect. There's a lot to iron out, but I think we've really come a long way. I think that does go back to the credit of the Governor's Workforce Council, the governor and his vision, his commitment, and especially the Office of Workforce Strategy. That's been great, not just for resources that they've been able to provide and initiatives, but also just as a congregator and as a leadership group that brings us all together. So really, I think we sit, if we're not at the nexus of opportunity, we're getting really close to that. And that's why this conversation, even if it's only for 30, 40 minutes, is exciting. I guess to me, from a higher ed perspective, the challenge is always, how can we get as many people that we serve at our institutions of higher education, whether they are private, public, whether they are flagship or whether they are regional, or more local, how do we get as many wonderful Connecticut students to into the opportunities that give them the training and the education that they need to then move on, move forward in their lives and get great jobs with great Connecticut companies and to stay to live and work in Connecticut. That to me is social mobility. It's economic and community impact. And that is true workforce development, right? And that's not only a certificate, it is a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD. The most educated workforce in the country, as the governor often says, is predicated upon that. And so that to me is the challenge as an institutional leader. That's the challenge for all of us in the higher ed industry. How do we continue to just provide what the state needs, what the residents of Connecticut who come to us want and need, and really create that closed loop environment. So I'll stop there, or else I will end up just talking the whole time, and that's not healthy for anyone. But maybe I'll pass it over to Jeff for some thoughts from an industry perspective.
And guys, I'm going to advance the slide too. We have one set up to sort of set the stage on education and career pathways.
Yeah, great.
And then after this, there are some discussion questions.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Terrence, thanks for those introductory comments. And maybe a way just to focus in on what we're talking about in this breakup, which I think is incredibly important and really is going to be where the rubber hits the road for so much of the work that's being done collaboratively through this council, is if you think about, this shift from sort of a K through 12 mindset to whatever you want to call it, a K through 16. The idea really comes down to, in my head, what's that experience for somebody in 9th, 10th, 11th grade through dual enrollment, through internships, apprenticeships, whatever programs get them into the workforce, especially leveraging the state and community colleges that Terrence oversees, UConn, all the different training programs we have. And if we think about from the student's perspective or from the learner or the worker's perspective, how do I get from, say, 10th grade to a job? And then what is it that we have to do from a K through 12 standpoint to make sure they're ready for that thinking and those training and making, and going through that. And then on the other side, the folks that are going to catch them, whether it be the educators, the trainees, the companies like Infosys or Synchrony or other folks you've heard from. And what do we need to have in place? What's the best way to sort of create that bridge between two proven, sets of institutions at the K through 12 level and SDE, and at the secondary level? What does that middle ground look like? What do we have to do on either side of that? And what does that experience come together like for the learner, for that next person in the workforce? If we keep our mindset on that, I think that will really help us, look at those obstacles and those hurdles that we all face as, all right, is this something we're going to have to deal with? Is it something we have to overcome? Is it something we're going to have to live with?
This guy.
I think it get us going. So, on that note, maybe, Keith, do you want to give a little perspective from the SDE point
Sure.
of view on
Sure.
this
Thank
challenge?
you.
We go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just say a few words. I don't want to talk too much because nobody really wants to hear from moderators. We actually want to hear from participants. But I want to just start off by thanking Terrence Chang, a great leader who we worked very hard with to come up with an MOU that we just signed, the first of its kind between the Department of Education and CSCU, which outlines how we're going to work together and what we're going to work on. And that includes internship programs, career pipeline programs, as well as academic program development, which would be geared towards the workplace and the workforce needs. In addition, we've been working really hard at the department to roll out a new grant program. It's a $5.5 million grant program aimed at expanding dual enrollment opportunities at all 216 school districts across Connecticut, so we can maximize the opportunities that we offer students to earn credits for both associate's degrees and later bachelor's degrees, to cut down on the amount of time that they're in the schools, and also creates a pipeline for our higher education institutions in Connecticut. But also these critical courses will also be geared towards workforce credentials. And so we're working really hard to meet the goals that are right for our learners and our kids, that are right for the workforce, right for the state, that are really outlined and embedded within the strategic plan that we're talking about today. So with that, I look forward to the continued work with industry and with our partners in higher education. And I'll stop talking and open it up to everyone else. Thank you so much.
And we have some set discussion questions. I'll move the slide forward, but I don't think we need to feel confined to these.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, as people are gathering their thoughts and looking at some of the discussion questions, I'm with Ben. I think we should just talk about whatever we need to talk about. But it seems to me that there's a lot of really good work underway already. It's finding the right the pockets and compartments, and then finding ways to kind of build on existing assets and create new ones as we see fit. So Ben, I see Todd, but maybe can you help drive on this a little bit? You might see your hands a little more quickly. But if Todd wants to say, start us off.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chang, you and I are overdue for a conversation, I've heard. My name is Todd Birch. I'm the State Apprenticeship Director. That being said, there's a lot of partners that are on this discussion today as well. I'm going to bring forward a pretty tough conversation. You would ask from the student's lens, what is the obstacle? I and my staff at the Department of Labor doing the apprenticeship thing have asked this question of our apprentices for many years. And the answer has been, in a consistent basis, that if someone wants to aspire to be a plumber or electrician or manufacturing worker for that matter, they're looked upon as lesser than and not equal to someone going for a post-secondary education. That's been very, very punitive. When you're telling a kid, if you don't go to college, you're not worthy. That's been the conversation we've been having over and over again. Now, that being said, we do fantastic jobs. In the previous slide, you said that 86% of college students or high school students are graduating. And the seat right there, yeah, graduation rate is 89.6. The CTEC system, which is a dual enrollment, but I'll talk about that in a quick second. We're at 95%. That being said, we got rid of shop or industrial arts and turned it into career technical education. And then it kind of like lost its way. We wonder why we don't have as many workers as we once did. It's the tough conversation I think that we all need to have yet again. This whole thing about dual credit, again, you're going from academia to academia. Let's start talking about, especially the stuff I administer with a lot of comprehensive high schools in the state. Let's talk about triple credit, workforce credit, not just academic credit. I'm embedded in, I think, 47 high schools, comprehensive high schools, with pre-apprenticeship for manufacturing and all sorts of other things, construction and so on and so forth. I see Dr. Thurmer, good friend of mine. I see Sal Menzo, a good friend of mine and proponent of this. This is how we have to change this, not change what we're doing, because that's scary to people. But this worked one time, and people were proud to have their academics and utilize their skills to actually manufacture something. So enough of my soapbox. I just wanted to put it out there. And again, it's punitive to individuals to say, if you're not going to college, you're lesser than and not equal to the rest of society. So thank you for letting me speak.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to pull out from what you said there, Todd, which you changed my vocabulary, there's no more dual credit. It's triple credit. The point of the dual credit is to get to those certifications and those qualifications that will get them hired. So far as I go, it's triple credit from here on out.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. And there's another thing that kind of interests me when we say non-traditional. If you tell somebody they're in a non-traditional role, like a woman in construction, they're in a non-traditional role, it's kind of outing them as a goofball. They've told me this specifically. So sometimes we have to watch not what we say or how we say it, but what it actually means to people. So thank you again.
Well, no, and I think I don't underplay that, because if we're talking about bringing in new cohorts of people, getting the attention and the belief from folks that haven't had the same access to the career and the education system in the past, that language matters. You're not different. You're part of who we are. Sean, should we go ahead with
thank
Dean
you.
Elliott?
When I hear triple credit kind of notion, I'm not sure I understand exactly what that third credit looks like. It sounds like it's about career outcomes and opportunities and jobs, but I don't know what it means in terms of some concrete thing as opposed to sort of a principle. Are we developing and delivering on a number of defined, articulated, attainable follow-on certificates that are career relevant?
Yes.
I'll leave that to the group here.
Well, if language is the thing, I'm sorry to be so ignorant, but I don't know what those things are, and I don't know how to help young people know what they should be looking for. What do they look like? What are they called? Where do they get them?
In my world, they're called pre-apprenticeships, and I would defer to Mr. Menzo because he's very articulate in this, if I could.
Thank you, if you don't mind. Actually, last night we awarded our pre-apprenticeship certificates to our students through our early college advanced manufacturing pathway at Goodwin University magnet schools. And what that is it allows the students to do a paid apprenticeship. It's over a 12-week apprenticeship that's paid. They're in the industry. And then the actual certificate, because they acquire 21 university credits, that certificate was approved by the Department of Labor, which accounts for over 100 hours of their pre-apprenticeship work when they go into the workforce. So this has a significant impact on our scholars because they're receiving 21 credits, which is over $15,000 free college tuition, as well as they're getting the 100 hours of pre-apprenticeship in the workforce when they get employed. Last night, we were pleased. This is the first year of moving through a full cohort because of COVID and such. Last night, we had any student who wanted or who was not planning to go to a 2-year or 4-year college got offered a position by a business. And they were offered a job ranging from $19 to $21 an hour, plus benefits, plus the potential of going back to school for at least after they were employed 6 months successfully on the job. This is not new. This is not something that just happens at a magnet school. in my previous role for 12 years as superintendent of Wallingford Public Schools in Wallingford, Connecticut, we established the same program with Goodwin University, with Todd Birch, thank goodness, with Cliff Thurmer. That's how Dr. Thurmer and I met. And we were doing the same thing, and that still is going on. This is not rocket science. I'm going to be very blunt because I'm getting old, and I've been around this racetrack so many times with the state that they don't need to. We really could, if you get about 4 people in a room, more than that, you're going to have a problem. But 4 people in a room, we could figure this out. And I think that's the situation, because we are offering Goodwin University magnet schools over the last year and a half that I've been here. We are in well over a dozen districts offering the triple credit opportunity. We are expanding. We are working with Electric Boat. We're expanding beyond traditional advanced manufacturing, and we were awarded $75 million last night to build a Tech 5.0 high school. So it'll be the premier technical high school in the state of Connecticut. There will not be another one like it in the state of Connecticut or in the country. I can mark my word and put my name on that. So I would suggest that I will offer again, as I've done for the last probably 8 or 9 or 10 years of my career, let's just move this forward. I see Ben smile because Ben knows that I'm on a lot of these calls and I say the same thing, but I'm getting old, people. And I can't just continue to be in Groundhog Day, the movie. I love Bill Murray. I don't want to play the part every year. So if we could just get ourselves together, let's not worry about territory. Let's not worry about the public versus private, who gets money, who doesn't get money, who's in debt, who's not in debt. Let's just do what's right for the citizens of our state, as well as our scholars. So I will stop there. But if anyone would like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to talk more about this. Needless to say, I'm passionate. I'm very excited for our scholars. I'm very excited for the future. We are working in rural districts as well as suburban districts, as well as affluent districts. We're working in every type of district. We're trying to break and bridge the inequity gap, because there's a significant inequitable opportunity for students. So we're looking at that through an equity lens, and we stand here to support. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Todd is a rock star. And I would just recommend that if you have any questions regarding Department of Labor, you reach out to him. And thank you for the time.
I've seen Dr. Thurmer's hand up for a while. I think there are a few hands, but I think his has been up the longest.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, just real quick, going back to the, it's great that we have great high school graduation rates. One of the areas that has been of concern to me has been the number of kids who are graduating with no plan. I talk to a lot of high schools and say, hey, every kid has a plan, but do they follow through? And I don't know what the rate of students that have just graduated or are graduating this June, how many of them are not going on. I've heard in the past as many as 9,000 kids across Connecticut. The whole point being, we're seeing enrollment down for these kinds of jobs in all the programs. My colleagues at the community colleges have shared that with me. We're not seeing the same number of kids coming in. And when I call the Department of Education and I say, well, who are these kids that have no plan? How did you get this number? It's like, well, it's reported up from the school systems. Okay, great. So then you have to chase down 169 towns and all of the different school systems. And there should be a better way to be able to reach out to these students to say, here are opportunities for you if you don't know what to do. At Goodwin here, we have our manufacturing in motion. We go out and we do a lot of recruiting about careers in manufacturing, and we just don't push Goodwin. We push our colleagues at the community colleges as well, and all the different programs that they can go. So if they're nearby, they can seek that out. But it would be incredibly helpful if there was a mechanism for the Goodwins and the community colleges who have these kids who've graduated, who aren't sure, who've not been exposed, for us to be able to reach out to them and identify them. If we have somebody on a WIO list, there's a list we can go after and we can share with them what the opportunities are. But it seems that these kids, once they leave the protection of the high school, there's no context for them anymore, and there's no connection. And that would be a wonderful thing to fix. So I wish I had the solution to that. But if we have some ideas to fix that one, I think that would be huge in getting a lot of these kids into these post-secondary programs at Goodwin and our great community colleges, and all of us trying to make this happen. Thanks, Ben.
Parents, Keith and Jeff, do you guys want to keep facilitating? I don't want to steal the spotlight.
I'm happy to have you run traffic. So
Yeah, you're doing great, man.
Okay. So Dr. Thurmer, I heard main point being we need some sort of streamlined process to reach those students who are graduating without some sort of plan. I see other hands. Does someone have a response to that? Are any of the hands to that, just to keep on that that thought? Kathleen?
Just kind of an addendum to that is there's a very similar and challenging issue even at the state universities, that we do have students who, when they graduate as well, they're kind of out there and don't understand that there are some things that they can do. And I think that it's kind of a general pool, whether they're going from high school or those that are getting out of college. We do find, and I work in the career office there, unfortunately, we just can't scale it, but we know that there's a lot of students who are leaving who are just don't understand that this process is a comprehensive process. There's a lot to do. It's like where to start. Obviously, it starts just taking one step, but it's like one step out of many. And the whole kind of pedagogy of career development and figuring out who you are, how to do it, what technology is available, all that is just not packaged. I don't want to take up too much time in this, but I can tell you from somebody who's now been working this for 10 years, it's probably one of the, I think, most little acknowledged challenge is that there is a pedagogy to this, but it's not taught.
Yeah, and that's specific. You're talking about specifically looking at people who are graduating with their bachelor's degree who really don't know the first step.
Well, or either, because I've got one of my instructors, we actually started some career education classes to help students with this. But I have a colleague who did this at the high school level, and she said it was the same thing there. It was trying to get students who were in high school to understand how to do this. And it's not just throw out a resume, right? It's how to understand who they are, what kind of a personal assessments might help them figure out how to do this. And I would, looking at the list of the stuff in one of the last slides, I think one of the two things that are missing is getting technology in there to help with this challenge, and also helping them make personal connections, because a lot of these students are very uncertain about how to make personal connections with people in order to help drive this process forward.
Got it. Thank you. Sabrina and Benjamin, I know you've had hands up. I'm assuming your hands are for a different thought. And I saw Leslie and Dean Elliott raise your hands. Are your hands in response to that? Yeah, so maybe I can go Leslie and then we'll go Sabrina, then Benjamin.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say I was really heartened when the conversation started in 10th grade and it started talking about sort of the students that we serve. I think to answer a lot of what's been said so far, we really need to start earlier, giving kids an understanding of what's out there for college and career readiness. And so we have a lot of examples of great programs. We could each name a bunch of them, but they're not hitting nearly enough people. And so part of the problem that we have is students aren't even getting into the mix where they sit in their household. So we have about 3,000 students in the Gear Up grant that's in the 10th grade right now in Waterbury, in East Hartford, and in Meriden. So they're a little slice of Connecticut. And what we're finding is that where they sit in their family and the role they play in their family is something we really have to understand and work with them on. Not only the fact that they're first gen, but what their parents or guardians or caregivers think about their role in the household. Are they contributing to the rent? Because they're not going to have the luxury of doing something without pay. And we've already talked about the need for that. And they're not necessarily going to see the luxury of going after something if they can't get out of that first step. So I would say we're spending an awful lot of time partnering with mentoring programs, women in biology, junior achievement, anybody who will have us to go out to the families, the supporters of the students, the guardians, to get them engaged. working really, really hard. We have about 500 people who took part over the last year of the 2,500 that are represented. So it really is difficult to get families engaged. But if you don't, I think you're setting the students up to not take advantage of this. So I think part of this discussion has to be farther down the pipeline, or before we even get to a discussion of whether they're interested in healthcare, advanced manufacturing. When we get to that point, we're really lucky. But what we're seeing is so many of the students don't even get to the luxury of that kind of talk. So I think what we do for awareness while we have them in high school and maybe before has got to be part of this.
Thanks, Leslie. Those are great points. I said I was going to go to Sabrina and Ben, but Dina, I
Well,
see.
because you asked me if it was on the same topic,
Yeah.
I realized to some extent it is.
Okay.
I was intrigued to notice that the state of Connecticut has adopted a financial literacy requirement in high schools that will affect students as of a graduating class of 27. If we can help them design that program, it should cover a number of these issues for all students in a way that could be helpful on the very thing we're talking about. I don't know which of us, if any of us, will be invited to be part of that pedagogical planning for the high schools, but that's a big opportunity.
Totally agree. And I believe, Keith, I don't want to speak for SE, but I'm assuming that's under your shop, right?
Hi, Ben. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that'll be taken up by our Chief Academic Officer, Irene Parisi, coming up this summer.
Great. Thank you. All right, Sabrina, thank you for being so patient.
No problem. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Mancini. I also work with Keith Norton at the State Department of Education, but I oversee adult education, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our adult ed population for a moment. I think they are a really important population when it comes to this particular group, the Governor's Workforce Council. In Connecticut, we have almost 300,000 individuals without a high school diploma, according to census data. And we need to provide them with a better opportunity for higher education partnerships and for training opportunities. Last year alone in Connecticut, we served 14,000 students. Half of those students were between the ages of 25 and 44. That is the prime age for employment. And so, yes, we need to do a better job of younger ages knowing exactly what it is that they need to do. But this population that we're serving in adult education, almost 10,000 of them in the ages of 25 to 44 that are looking for opportunities right now for training, for employment, and for higher education. We're just not doing, we're doing a lackluster job of connecting with me so we can connect to the local programs and really bridge that inequity gap. Adult education operates in all of in the entire state. We had over 1,000 graduates who earned a high school diploma last year. So, you know, it would be really helpful that we can design some mechanism like the colleagues before me said, for a way to really bridge and help reach out and identify programs. You know, we offer federal dollars for integrated education and training programs. So we offer the education part, and our local adult population, our programs are finding it difficult to find places where they can do the training component and finding opportunities for our students to get a training and a credential. So I'd love to see that happen in a more robust fashion. So I just wanted to make sure that I bring that up because we often talk about K-12 and adult education is the forgotten kind of concept that we offer in adult education. And it is really a wonderful program. Not everyone who enrolls in our program drops out of school. We have many people who come from another country who are highly educated in their own countries and are here looking to further their education, get a U.S. diploma. We do have some students who have left for a variety of reasons. And so that population, you know, we need to do better for them because they are the most marginalized and disenfranchised population. So I just wanted to make sure that I bring that up. And so I am happy to work with any of you who can see a potential for partnership. So thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. That's a great point. I saw it in the chat as well. And that actually speaks to one of our discussion topics here, which was how do we ensure that we're serving the most vulnerable students. And I think it's important to remember that adult learners are students as well. Ben, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, and I'll keep it pretty brief. I'm relatively new. I'm a business services specialist at the Department of Labor, so my role is really engaging with the local employer community. And I hear so often that we've invited 12 people to orientation, and then 8 show up, and by the end of the week, we've got 3 new hires, and that's a good week. And what that makes me think of from kind of a block and tackle perspective, because I have people in my personal circle who are elementary educators in under-resourced system-involved schools, is that the lifting has never been heavier. The social emotional skill gap is an economic issue. 10% of Americans, according to Columbia, have depression. I think that number skews up when you look at the very communities we're trying to get more engaged in the labor market. And just kind of a more anecdotal piece of feedback, and this is maybe getting back to Todd's point, under the AVID program, there's a lot of kind of putting on pedestal, college education. And I think that kind of hurts us in 2 ways. One, it drives home that idea that, a baccalaureate degree is somehow better than a trade career. And 2, I think it also disenfranchises some of the staff at the schools who may not have a baccalaureate. So I think without kind of a base coat of social emotional instruction, any investment in technical instruction is going to be throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, so main point, making sure that social and emotional instruction are included in this whole pillar.
And more adults in the building.
Thank you.
Adults in the building.
Thank you. Paulette?
Hi, I've been sitting back and I've listened to a lot of stuff. I run the OIC program in New Britain. We're one of the oldest employment and training programs in the country. And we go after those youth who fall between the cracks. And I've been working with New Britain High School for probably 38 years now. And what I've seen is that our youth that fall between the cracks are usually youth that don't know what they're going to do after they graduate. And what we've done in New Britain is we've working with the nonprofits, after school programs, we've dropped down to 6th grade to get youth turned on to thinking about careers. And we have engaged the parents. I think one of the things that happened, I don't know about you guys, but I'm 73. My parents knew exactly what my schedule looked like in high school. We sat down together. And I think we're getting back to that in New Britain, working with the parents, exposing youth to CCSU. That's right in our backyard. We've done that. One of the things that I'm a little disappointed about, I understand that the summer youth, the youth dollars were cut for the summer. And that is one way to get youth who don't know what they want to do, working with employers, getting them interested and turned on from the ages of 14. I know Capital Workforce Partners has a tier system. So we expose you 14 and 15 to the apprenticeships, colleges, all of those things. And without the funding to really work, that's going to bite our hands off. And you're going to continue to have youth who are in high school in their senior year that don't know what they want to do. And I run a WIOLA program. So we are capturing a lot of those youth because we've created a pipeline. So I heard somebody say that pipeline, you do need to drop it down to elementary. And we're looking at that in New Britain. We're looking at those STEM careers. Our kids are materialistic. If they look at them STEM jobs, and that's manufacturing, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, construction, that's good paying salaries, starting salaries. And we know that education, I'm an educator first, education is imperative. So we've got some work to do at ground level, but please don't forget your nonprofits. Continue to partner with them, and we'll get you the people that are not going to the American Job Centers. We send them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. So guys, we have a now 2-minute warning. I think we've covered a lot of these questions. There's one that we haven't, and I just want to toss it up. And that's about measuring the success in this pillar. So what data should we track and what seem to be realistic 5-year goals? I know we're not going to solve that in 2 minutes, but if we could just hear some initial reactions. And again, this is an ongoing process. Liz?
Yeah, we've been thinking about this on our end at Fairfield County's Community Foundation, because we're really focused on systems change solutions. And so what I would like to see reflected here is, instead of sort of traditional metrics that are focused on individual students, more focused on creating opportunities for those students to reflect how the system is changing to work towards equity and all of these other goals that we have. So number of internship and opportunities created in the system overall, number of quality jobs created in the system overall that are geared towards certain populations and how those are connecting with the K-12 system. Maybe number of strategic partnerships developed between K-12 businesses, et cetera, to develop new solutions for different populations. And so I think just thinking about how we measure success, we can have some of those individual interventions included that are traditionally included, but I'd also like to see some of the systemic ones.
I think that's a great point. Anyone else?
I think regardless of where people are or where they're going, the bridge to success is from academia to practicum. I often say, God forbid we get someone a career around here. So no matter what they want to do, I think that is a good metric. We talk about quality jobs. All jobs are good jobs, just most of them have lousy pay and no benefits. I think defining the quality of where someone's going, no matter what they choose to do in life, is paramount to success. And that's the metric. So thank you.
Thank you. And Jim, you have probably a couple seconds before we get kicked out.
I would just say, what Mark Argosh talked about, work-based learning, going from 3% to 30% and hopefully 100% should be a very high, a major indicator that we're looking at for all groups that you also mentioned in the strategic plan, adult ed, opportunity youth, and other targeted populations that were talked about in the plan.
Yep, agreed. And Keith, I think a lot of this is going to be the stuff that SDE already tracks, right? And looking into that.